to another last episode.
Hey there, guys. Tyler Sucks, aka the Gaming Guy TWG. Should I say, hey there, TWG Army? It is Tyler Sucks, aka the Gaming Guy TWG. And our fifth and final video is going to be a pretty long special. This video is 19 minutes long, so this is going to be split into two parts. It is the Amazing World of Gumball Creepypasta by SomeOrdinaryGamers, the lost episode Creepypasta to be exact. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and listen, and I'll shut up. But the link to the SomeOrdinaryGamers channel and the original video will be in the description below. And yeah, I'll shut up now.
So I stayed awake to see what would happen when it ended. A little bumper showed up at the bottom of the screen during a commercial break. It said that a special episode of The Amazing World of Gumball was about to come on. I was a little confused about an episode of a very popular new show coming on this early. But I was bored and decided I'd watch it, thinking it might come on later in the day so I could spoil it for my brother. Sort of mean, I know. The flashy and energetic intro theme played. Although it was played a little differently than I recall, the music was different, and the show's logo wasn't animated. Its colors were done rather sloppily, like a little kid would do on a doodle board or a globe board. I ignored it,
globe
it was just done for this special episode. The title of the episode was The Grieving, a sort of sad title, but I didn't really pay too much attention. It began with Gumball, the show's 12-year-old protagonist, standing alone facing a corner of this dimly lit classroom. He looked absolutely miserable, a far cry from the cheery demeanor he usually had. There was no one else in the room, not even his best friend and adopted brother, Darwin the goldfish. And the windows in the room clearly showed the night sky outside. I was really starting to get confused. Why would he be at school at night, and why was he standing in the corner all sad and alone? After what seemed like a minute of Gumball standing somberly in the corner, the scene suddenly changed. We were in Gumball's house. Once again, the scene is silent and a little disquieting. Richard, Gumball's enormous rabbit father, walks in from the kitchen. He looked even more miserable than Gumball had been in the previous scene. Richard isn't wearing his usual attire. He's dressed in this fancy black suit, a little uncharacteristic of him, as he's usually a slob. He sighs and slumps down under the sofa and starts sobbing intensely, sounding like someone who had just lost something important. I was starting to get a little creeped out. Where was the silly, fun cartoon that I usually look forward to watching with my younger brother? This is something completely different. I was beginning to think that this might have been something the creators did as an experiment or something, a test of the animation or sound perhaps, though it couldn't have been, aside from the opening theme, which was still different than the final shows. The episode had been much quieter than it usually was, only subtle sounds and very little music, and the animation was not anything to write home about either. It was done a bit like an amateur flash on Newgrounds. The character designs were somewhat sloppy and rushed looking, and the real-life backgrounds used for the show looked different. As confused and somewhat frightened as I was, for some reason I kept watching it. Poor Richard was still sobbing on the sofa as the front door opened suddenly, making me jump a bit at such a loud noise, and Gumball's mother Nicole, a blue cat like him, stepped in. Like Richard, she wasn't wearing her usual outfit, but for some reason she was in this black dress and was wearing a pretty black hat to match. Nicole sat down on the couch to comfort her husband, although she was looking a bit saddened by herself. By this point, Richard's crying had began to get more pained and miserable sounding. This wasn't the normal cartoon crying on the show. This was realistic and almost depressing crying. I almost felt like sobbing myself too. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the sad scene at their home had ended, and as I shifted back to the school, we weren't in Gumball's classroom this time. We were in Principal Brown's office. Nicole and Richard were there in their usual clothes, looking more normal and happy than they had been before, but still slightly worried. Principal Brown, however, looked extremely sad. He quietly and somberly informed them that their children, Anaïs and Darwin, were not present after lunch earlier that day. They hadn't been seen at all the rest of the day for, that fact. Nicole was instantly furious at him. She began spouting various insults and calls at him, and I don't think it would have made it a more mature program like regular show. I mean, I was laughing at this because it seemed sort of funny for Nicole to flip out in this manner and start swearing like a sailor in a G-rated cartoon, throwing cusses everywhere. But my outlook soon changed when Principal Brown told her something else after she had finally quieted down. Her eyes began to tear up as he informed them that they eventually were found, but they hadn't been found alive. He then went into graphic and nearly nauseating detail describing how their bodies were found, their parents just sitting in utter shock. I could hardly believe what was happening. How could such a cheery and fun kids show take this dark and twisted turn? I was considering turning that television off, but I was too scared to be left in the dark by now, nearly frozen by fear.
Kind of like me right now.
Terrible things that he was saying. Oh, the flashback. The scene was earlier that day, and the animation it seemed was even worse than earlier. I don't remember it very clearly, but I think he began his recollection by saying that the school had called the police department when when they first turned up missing, believing that the kids had simply ran off and decided to skip school. They said it was very uncharacteristic of both Darwin and Anais to go skip, school like delinquents. Darwin was a little naive and a bit ditzy, but he was a good kid and wouldn't have been even dreamed of doing something like that. And Anais was even less likely to run away. She was a straight A student, despite being only 4, which also troubled the police, seeing as a defenseless.
That kind of character type is so cliche right now, it's not even funny.
The school had been thoroughly checked. As the police started to search the heavily wooded area outside
the smart 4-year-old or something like that. It's so cliche. It's like a really cliche character type.
You likely would have expected someone like that to be on the show in this cutesy art style, but it was nothing like that at all. It was just very real-looking blood that covered this box inside and out, while Anais's head was done in this normal style, but was drenched in the blood and whatever other fluid there was. Not all of them hers, apparently. There was a note in that box, seemingly written in her blood. It was never stated during the episode what was written on the note, but it apparently led to the rest of her remains in Darwin's heavily mutilated corpse. What I remember most about this scene was how out of place it seemed. All the blood and gore from Darwin and Anais slaughtered and dismembered remains were done in this very realistic and disturbing way. It looked like the scene had been taken from a crime scene photograph done by a professional, not something from a cartoon. The way this scene was animated was different from most of the show as well. You may know that the characters from the series are done in this vastly differing animation style, from flash animation to computer-generated imagery, and I think there's even a character done by someone putting their chin upside down to make a face. The particular scene wasn't like anything I'd seen on the show before. Every little detail on Darwin's face was clearly illustrated. He looked a little like a zombie. His face was very pale, and his eyes had been gouged out by someone. Anais fared no better, or what was left of her anyway. She was naked and her stomach had been slit open. Her intestines were strewn around the trees and bushes in the wood, done once again in this very morbid and realistic fashion. I was feeling very ill by the time this incredibly disturbing flashback had come to an end, so I quickly ran to the bathroom to vomit. I was feeling rather I was feeling better after this upchucking, so I realized that I had good timing and I had to run to the bathroom during this commercial. It was then I noticed that the show had been running twice as long. It usually runs for 11 minutes, but the show was running for about 30. By then I was wondering if there was any information on the grieving on IMDb or something. So while the commercials were still playing, I looked up some information about this episode on Google. Nothing comes up. No information remotely similar to the plot or name of this episode existed anywhere. Now I'm incredibly scared and wondering if anyone else was watching. I quickly dialed my brother Larry and asked him to turn on Cartoon Network to see if he was seeing the same shit that I was. He was pretty mad that I woke him up at this hour, but he's a nice guy and he told me that he would, see for me. I thanked him, stayed on the line as the show came back from commercial break. The scene had thankfully panned away from the horrific sight of the children mutilated and was back to the principal's office. I asked Larry if he saw some cartoon animals talking or crying, since that's what they were doing on my TV. To my surprise, he said he saw nothing like that. Instead, it was a rerun of an old Looney Tunes short. In utter shock, I dropped the phone and ran over to the TV to turn it off. As hard as I pressed the buttons, it would not shut off at all. I tried every single button. None of them did a damn thing. I tried unplugging the whole thing as well, but nothing worked. The TV stayed on no matter what I did. Larry,
it's getting creepy now.
I guess. And I was alone once again. My door was locked from the outside somehow, and the door to my bathroom was now locked as well. It seemed I had no choice but to call the police, since my other family members were gone that night. It was a reason I could stay up so late to watch Adult Swim in the first place. So when I hurriedly dialed the number, I accidentally dropped my cell phone into the cup of Pepsi.
Oh my god.
I was very scared. And I had
Retard.
to finish that episode, turn on all the lights in my room, got under the covers, hiding like my little brother does when I make him watch scary movies with me. I'd apparently missed a little bit, but Gumball's parents were still talking to Principal Brown, so not that much. Nicole was asking him if Gumball was alright, apparently since she hadn't remembered him when Principal Brown told her what happened to Darwin and Anais. He looked slightly confused and shocked for a moment and explained to her that he thought Gumball was out sick today, and he spent the day at home by himself with the stomach bug. Nicole screamed and wailed, while Richard quietly told him in a very out-of-character voice that they thought Gumball had got on the bus this morning. But it didn't seem that way. And the police were called once again to search the building in the small forest outside of Elmore Junior High. They had found him in Miss Sinane's classroom, hanging by a noose, with a blood-covered knife behind him and blood covering his clothing.
Oh my god.
With shot.
So all 3 kids are dead.
Corner fading to black.
Jesus Christ.
Not like the usual way of Cartoon Network annoyingly airing a promo that squishes half the screen. These credits rolled unusually slow, and they weren't that fun to watch either. A little creepy, just plain white text scrolling on a black background when you think about it. I only recognize Ben Bocaquela's name, as he was the creator of the show. The rest were people I've never heard of. The copyright notice at the end said Cartoon Network Studios 2001, which was incredibly odd, seeing as the show was new for 2011. After all that was clearly over, the screen went to static for a split second, during which some incredibly creepy and these shocking video clips were shown during static intervals. I can still remember them all very clearly. The first was a picture of a person in this plague doctor outfit, the one with the bird style face. Those always scared me for some reason, and the way that person in the suit was filmed was just as bad. A red light, something that would freak me out incredibly, was shown over the clip. The next was what seemed like a video being played very quickly over and over of a kitten's face being squished by a woman wearing high heels, which is strange because a so-called friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday of a cat being stepped on and killed, similar to the...
Alright guys, we're gonna stop this part of the video right here. Like I said, this video was 19 minutes long, and I don't basically have permissions yet to go over the YouTube 15.5-minute time limit. Hopefully I will have that eventually. But for right now, TWG Army, this is Tyler 6K, the Gaming Guy TWG, and we're gonna be moving on to part 2 right about now.